This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast, session number 248. Karen Gray on consistent hypnotic growth.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Happy day after Christmas, happy holidays, happy everything else, and if not, well, have a joyous December 26th. It's Jason Linett here celebrating the holiday season, and oftentimes we play the game of picking out a specific number episode or specific release of a session and doing something special around it. So specifically, just to kind of set the stage, sharing the podcast stage here with two of my best friends in the industry and the world. The episode today with Karen Gray, and as a bit of a preview, almost on a bit of a New Year's theme, we've got Dan Candell back in the program next week on, I believe, January 2nd or whatever Thursday is. And the story behind having Karen back on the program is very simple. Yes, Karen is someone who, let's rewind back to when she was on the podcast before. We'll link to the previous episode back in the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com. Basic story, this guy John comes and takes my hypnosis training, goes back and makes her arm stiff and rigid so she can't bend it, and she goes, I gotta learn this stuff. And she'll highlight the rest from here of originally the goal of using the hypnosis to enhance her work as a registered nurse, and then eventually just kind of realizing, oh yeah, let me just do this hypnosis thing. That's what I'm excited about, and you're going to hear the results of that. Now, the reason I had Karen on the program the first time a while ago was that, quite simply, here was a moment where, yes, she had gone through my online educational program, she had taken the live Work Smart Hypnosis live event, and then she was kind of running her own business and doing some stuff that even I was off to the side going, hey, what are you doing? That's cool. I want to try that out. And having her on to tell the story of utilizing some local email listservs. And it was an offhanded remark of a conversation we had when she was here in Virginia once again, whether it was the Train the Trainer event or even the recent David Snyder event. But the experience of kind of calling it out, here she is in her second or third year as a hypnotist, and boom, this just happened, six-figure business. Hell yeah, this stuff works. So you're going to hear the details in terms of how she's now thinking differently, what's had to happen in terms of managing the time, and really this true passion that you're clearly going to hear in the dialogue of creating the best possible experience for her clients, for her local community, and even going above and beyond just the time we spend in our offices, providing a valuable service of education, not even just for the sake of scaling people into your private services, but education for the local business community. And even on top of that, just putting out this goodwill project in terms of how we interact with others, the importance of when to scale our opportunities, of how we work with people, how we eventually level up our office spaces. And oh man, do we talk an amazing dialogue around the value of having the opportunity of dedicated media, this ease to then put out new content. And yes, we even take this time to do some holiday amends to make nice with scripts once again. And she's going to emulate for you exactly the way that we as the modern day practitioner should look at scripts as a resource, or as I'd say, look at the script as if it were a transcript of one specific session with one specific client from one specific practitioner on that one specific day. And this is what they found to be effective with that one person. And then, therefore, it's your right as the practitioner to modify as needed to better customize what that person's needs are. So this is where you're going to hear the brilliance of creating a flexible framework. Frameworks equal freedom. The flexible framework of some sort of workshop seminar. And then based on the audience, based on the necessary promotion, that's how we decide exactly how do we make it that laser focused for the audience that's in front of us. Yes, indeed, for women that are married and have 4 dogs. I think that's the reference. That doesn't make sense to you yet. That will as soon as you get into this amazing dialogue. So check her out online at greenmountainhypnosis.com, and all the links are going to be in the show notes over at worksmarthypnosis.com. Check her out, reach out and say hello. And of course, while you're looking at the show notes too, well, let me just make it simple. Check out all that we do with Work Smart Hypnosis. Come on in for the live hands-on training event. You're about to listen to the results of someone who's actually gone through this content and, more importantly, has put it in motion, has actually done the efforts, put in the work, and has really brought in her own mindset to really make it her own. So Work Smart Hypnosis Live is the live hands-on training event where even for those of you that have some experience already in hypnosis, look at it this way. You probably know a lot of great techniques, but the challenge is how the hell do you put it all together? That's what this training is really all about, building systems for change to better serve your clients. If you can't quite make the travel, well, check out hypnoticworkers.com. This is the all-access pass to my hypnosis training library. It's all the video content, so you do kind of miss out on the hands-on content. And just to say it simply, many people who go through the online training eventually then join me for the live event. So either live and in person at worksmarthypnosislive.com or check out the digital access, all-access pass, lifetime access, hypnoticworkers.com. And if you would also like to make it rain, as Karen is now making it rain, there's no need to have to reinvent the wheel. That's what Hypnotic Business Systems is all about. This is the all-access pass to my hypnosis business training library. We're going to see my frameworks. You're going to see the systems I've set in place, even down to the stuff you wouldn't think about, whether it's the stuff you'd say if you're giving a presentation to a local group, how to design your own seminars, email marketing campaigns that are already done for you, and you have the license rights to reproduce. So whether it's one or two or all three, which, by the way, if you're considering all three, send me an email directly to jason@virginiahypnosis.com because I'm the payment plan guy. We spread it out. We make it really easy for you. So a lot of content all based on here's what's working now. And folks like Karen, where it's a thriving community where I'm learning from her, here's how she's taken some of the stuff that I've done and she's doing it better. So with that in mind, congratulations on this outstanding success. Here we go. Happy holidays. Episode number 248, Karen Gray, on consistent hypnotic growth. Hey, Karen.
Hey, Jason.
How's it going?
It's going really well. How are you?
I know, right? We were talking about this before we jumped in, and this episode's been a while coming that we've been chatting that you were on the program a number of years ago and telling that story of how you first got into hypnosis and then eventually how you opened up your practice and a whole lot of things that you did, including like Chamber of Commerce type things, email listservs to really get things up in motion. And specifically to call it out ahead of time, the reason having you back on was that, hey, this stuff is working for you. And going quite well. And for those that don't yet know you, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I am Karen Gray, and I own Green Mountain Hypnosis, located in Lebanon, New Hampshire. And by background, I'm a registered nurse who stepped out of my nursing career to become a hypnotist. Though in all fairness, that wasn't my intention when I took your class.
Yeah. What was that intention originally?
I was really intrigued. I have no background in hypnosis at all.
Yeah.
And I can talk about that a little bit more later on, because it actually plays a really interesting role in how successful I've been. But as I took the class, it was out of an interest and an excitement because the science behind hypnosis and the ways that you're able to use this modality to do really incredible things, well, that's just awesome. So I started taking the class with the intention of bringing these tools and techniques back to my nursing career, and very quickly realized that a much better idea would be to open my own practice. So I did.
Yeah, which let's fast forward the story and people can go back, of course, we'll link to it in the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com. Or fun fact for the listeners out there, if you're on the Work Smart Hypnosis website, in the top left, there's a search function, and that's where you can easily track down past episodes or themes of sessions. And you can just type in Karen Gray, KarenGray, and that'll find those episodes. But again, we'll link to it in the show notes. But give us the Cliffs Notes version. Where have things gone since the last time we recorded together? How are things going?
Things are going great. The business has
Great episode.
grown.
All right. So once again, everybody, thanks for listening, and leave reviews on 2 minutes and 30. Okay, we'll keep going. Yeah, so catch us up.
So let me see. In July, we moved out of our tiny office that shared a wall with a machine shop to a second floor, 2-office suite with much more room and much less noise.
Yes.
We were able to do that because we have gotten busier and busier and busier. Exponentially, it's grown. So I believe I have tripled the number of clients in the last 2 months over the last.
Nice.
Yeah.
And if you had to kind of reverse engineer that, what's been bringing those people in?
So I'll start with the framework.
Yes.
And here's my nod to Jason that your training course and the Work Smart Hypnosis provides this incredible framework that gives you all the basics of how to move forward in running a hypnosis business, what are great marketing strategies, and all of these building blocks like Legos that you can build up with. So that's how it began. And from there, I was able to take those tools and fit them really easily into our demographic, which in Northern New England is a little bit different than the rest of the world, in all fairness. And from
Well,
there,
briefly, how would you say they're different?
there's, without sounding too political,
Yes.
there's there's a
But
cost of living income imbalance here that can be catastrophic to a certain amount of the population and shows up in all kinds of ways through the demographic. And for as open-minded and wonderful and willing to try new things as this area of the country is, hypnosis is a foreign entity. So I had to start from scratch in terms of educating people. And not only am I here, but here's what I do, and here's why you want it. So there was that piece.
Yeah, so that task of, let's say, being that advocate first and having to, I describe it as, and I'll give a metaphor for this, which now this is kind of the norm. But if we look at even, the online program that I have, Hypnotic Business Systems, which had a different name when it first came out, but I was at a convention selling a thing that you could not physically touch while everyone else had stacks of DVDs. And there's something to be said, and I learned something from this. There's something to be said about when you have to sell the platform first before you can even sell the product. So in the shape of hypnosis, the product we're actually selling is not the hypnosis. We're selling the change and the outcome and the process we're going to do together. The platform of how we actually do that is the actual hypnosis. And until we have that barrier taken care of, we can't really address the second one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the first year and a half was all about focusing on education. I put out a weekly article that talks about, different timely issues that people may be encountering and ties it in all very nicely about here are some tools that you can use to manage whatever it is that's going on. And here's why hypnosis is so awesome. So there's that piece.
Yeah.
But in terms of the growth, it's been consistency.
Yeah.
And being consistent. And we talked about this on a previous podcast, how there was this one year that I went to HypnoThoughts and I didn't write an article for 2 weeks. And I came home and I didn't have any clients for 2 months.
Yeah.
This year, I planned better. We came home from the convention and I've had a solid book schedule ever since.
Nice.
So that consistency to maintain the things that are working. And this is how we're programmed. The tricky part comes in where it's time to growth, time to develop that growth, and when it's good to make those changes and take risks. And
so what are some of those risks that you took?
I revamped the articles.
Yeah.
Which was a big deal. They were starting to sound somewhere between cheese and clickbait. And that wasn't the direction I wanted to go in at all. I wanted it to be my voice telling you things that I think are really cool.
Which is a great move because there's 4 things I hate about clickbait and you won't believe number 3.
Exactly.
Yes.
And they don't even publish that story, and that drives me nuts.
Right.
So one of the things was revamping how I did the articles. I haven't been too concerned about making sure that it's out on this day a week. It's typically either Monday or Tuesday. And the other change that we made was to back off in other areas that weren't performing.
Yeah.
And that, at the time, I'll be honest, felt like a huge risk.
Well, let's pause that for a second because I want to go back to something that you mentioned, which that ability to recognize that we don't always have to be consistent based on a specific schedule. I think that's a huge point to really highlight, and as I'm saying this out loud, I am now realizing I'm guilty of my own greatest criticism, that I used to be the guy at the convention saying with a playful smile, you're all, and I pre-framed it, you're all fantastic people with wonderful skills and you deeply care about what you do and nobody wants your damn newsletter.
Right.
So in the real mindset behind that statement was, I'm going to send you something that's specific about your public speaking anxiety. Here's this video that I found online that shows some really cool tips. And as a side note, this is what we help to strengthen inside of the hypnotic process. So if this video resonates with you, please give me a call right away so we can schedule a time to get started. And that's very laser focused as opposed to the standard newsletter format. Hey, it's Tuesday. Let me send you something. Which the disclaimer always was, yes, Sean Michael Andrews does a fantastic newsletter, which I believe does come out on Tuesdays, and you should really subscribe to that one. As I'm now realizing, here you are, like episode number 250 something, and this has always come out on Thursdays because it's Thursday.
Right.
Yay, podcasting. So know your platform and recognize too that you're the one who sets the deadline, therefore you're the one who gets to change it.
Exactly. And to that, you're not just putting out a newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're putting out something with quality content that people know that there's a 94% chance that they're really going to want to hear what this podcast is about.
And this is a different entity than I'd say the local business to some degree, because this is more that built-in audience. This is, micro niche in terms of this is hypnotist already doing hypnosis. That's the audience for this, and that's where it's different. So by giving yourself permission to only put the content out when you knew it was valuable to those people, what was different with that?
Oh, well, way less stress on my part.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to write something for the sake of writing it. The quality of the articles went up. I used to be really stringent. I got to be consistent. So it's got to be this long. It has to contain these sections. It's got to have 4 tips. I went a little nuts. And now I start the beginning of the month and I write out 4 or 5 ideas, however many weeks there are to cover. And they're things I'm actually genuinely interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not stressed about what it is. If I end up with 3 paragraphs that are really awesome, I'm not going to put in 5 more to fill space.
Yeah.
So the quality of the content that I'm putting out has definitely increased, and it's made my job a lot easier.
Right.
I went into business because
content first rather than schedule.
Right. That feeling of, I got to do this. I got to have it. The deadline's coming. I got to get this done. That feeling, I think, is the reason why a lot of people go into business for themselves, so they don't ever have to feel that again. So it seemed very silly that I was making myself be that employee in my own business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that editorial calendar based more on, the value to the person reading it as opposed to, again, just because it's Thursday.
Right.
Which, by the way, happy Thursday.
Thank you.
So there's some of that content side. Was this all writing? Was this video? What was the platform?
I'm still writing. That's an interesting piece. It is in the back of my mind on a weekly basis about transitioning into doing videos. It's been the comfort of being able to spend money on the things that are going to make the quality videos. And then an interesting thing happened as well. And this is all excuses as to why I'm not making videos yet, but my schedule filled up.
Yeah.
And well, that really cuts down on your production time in a wonderful way. But now I'm playing that game of, how do I keep the client schedule filled, do the things that I need to do, and create content and courses and videos and launch new formats and all that stuff. But right now, the articles are doing well.
Yeah, I mean, this is where you get to choose the platform that you use.
Yeah.
So it's where, the platform of this podcast series does bring in clients even to the local business, not just Zoom sessions with folks around the world, but the locals find it. They see it as further evidence of what I do. And that's one specific mechanism that I do. When I got my start, if you look at some of the older links on Virginia Hypnosis, I was writing a column for a local newspaper. And it really doesn't matter. Some of those things are nearly 9 or 10 years old now. There's still resources and assets that we can use. But clearly put, that's not something that I'm doing now because I don't need to.
Right.
So it's that discovery that what we do to get started is not necessarily what we have to keep doing. And we may even just outgrow a strategy and then eventually decide, let me move on to something else. So it's okay to pick the platform that you want to use and just focus and do that one extremely well, rather than what so many people do, which is they try to do everything and they do it all badly.
Yeah. And that beautifully ties up that loop of letting go of the stuff that doesn't seem to be working.
Mm-hmm.
Of, there were places that I was advertising because that's where I started, and realized at some point last year that I don't need to be spending that money and I'm not getting anything back from it. So we can quit doing that. But at the same time, because we're so programmed to maintain consistency, right, that's what hypnosis is all about, is overriding that homeostasis, that balance.
Yeah.
So we're so programmed to maintain this consistency that the idea of changing anything once you put it into motion can be a little intimidating. So
Well, let's talk for a moment, because we were kind of hinting at this before we started recording, that there's often some growing pains that come from that moment where suddenly, hey, it's working and the schedule is filled. What
right
are what are some of those new barriers that you've realized as the business owner you've had to address?
now that we're growing, there's more that I want to do.
Yeah, nice.
And I started a series of classes with the Chamber of Commerce. And to anybody listening, if your Chamber of Commerce is offering classes to corporations in your area, this isn't a bad idea at all.
Hmm.
So my local Chamber of Commerce has an arrangement with 5 huge businesses in the area. And their arrangement is that they will provide quality content and classes as part of their HR programs. So all I have to do is set up a class and provide a space. And the chamber collects the money and recruits the participants and sends me a check. And I get to stand in front of a room of people and be awesome. So these have been great. So it's an hour-long workshop. And this is one of the things I've taken on. And the crunch I've found is that now I'm working more hours on weekends to get the classes and the workshops built
Hmm.
because the client schedule is full.
Though, let me pose a scenario here, which is not
Mhm.
just for the not for the goal of coaching, but just
Yeah.
to kind of call out the next phase of this. Let's fast forward the story. It's 3 months from now, and these workshops are now assets that you know how to turn on these workshops. You know how to then take that. Let's use my real terminology that I use in my head. Let's take that song and dance routine, and you could do that somewhere else now.
Oh, exactly.
So you're
Everything.
very much in a content creation mode where there's more of a challenge. I think of all things, the friend of mine that's a third grade teacher who had been a first grade teacher for 10 years, then became a third grade teacher. And the first year was the worst year of her life because she hadn't taught that before and there wasn't a curriculum just handed to her. The second year, she goes, oh, I get it now.
Mhm. Exactly. So, and definitely in that framework, and that that comes from workers and all of this great education piece, is that anytime you're going to sit down to make something, make it artfully vague enough, make it
Mhm.
universal enough so that you can use it until it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And
Elaborate on that for those that don't quite get the full point of what you're saying, because I think that's a major, major thing to really address here.
so the first de-stress workshop that I did for the chamber was one that I had written up a really short PowerPoint for a meetup event that we held within the first 3 months of launching the business. And because in order to make something universal, you have to keep it pretty plain, pretty simple, pretty non-specific. And to do that, create your workshop so that we're going to cover stress. I'm not specifically in this framework creating a workshop for stress for middle-aged women with 4 dogs.
Right.
I'm creating a workshop for stress that I
Hang
can
on a second.
then
I need to buy a website. I'll do it. No, go ahead.
but create the workshop within that foundation so that then when you have a group of middle-aged women with 4 dogs who want a stress workshop, you can tweak it in
Mhm.
very small, very simple 20 minutes worth of time to then customize it for them.
I forget, this is an obscure reference, but there was a magician that I knew, and he had this signature act, which could kind of appeal to all ages. And it was amazing to find out that this guy would do the performance for rather, sort of elite corporate groups, but also he would change his costume and he would also do the exact same show for children's birthday parties. And his description was, yeah, I just used different music.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So just to highlight this, coming up with some sort of, and I'll tell you some examples of this, and this is quite honestly something I'm working on right now, which is part of why we're batch producing most of the episodes for the next 2 months, which would be that if you can identify one specific need that people have, if you can do that, the only real customization comes in the marketing and then in the final delivery. So I'd highlight and I'd highly endorse this guy's materials. Chandler Bolt is the one behind self-publishingschool.com. He's got some books on Amazon. I went through the entire expensive course to put out my book. And really, what he did was quite genius because he solved the problem of how do you self-publish a book and get it to #1 on Amazon. Yet so the course delivers that one specific need. Yet inside of it, the marketing, I saw him at a marketing convention talking about how do you increase your visibility online. The same week, he was speaking to a group of chiropractors about how to position yourself as the clear choice in your community. So the marketing message is what changes the actual conversation. But at the end of the day, here's this core delivery of stress relief, fear release, weight loss, public speaking, whatever it might be. So to have that core signature delivery thing and then customize it based on the folks in front of you is a great, great model to strive towards. Otherwise, here's my, and who I'm talking about is going to hear exactly the reference. Here's my course for the parents of teenage drummers. That's specific, which once you're up and running and then you've got a thriving business, you can quote, play with the house's money to then target
Right.
something that extremely specific. And it's not a make or break moment. So just list a few of these programs that you've been building.
So I built a core stress management, and from that came a stress management for executives and a stress management for parents and a stress management for teachers. And then because those were the three interest groups that came to me.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those is specific yet general enough so that they can be branched into a more specialized place. I
Yeah.
have an anti-anxiety workshop that we're going to be shifting it a little bit because we live in northern New England, and so we're going to do an anxiety-free driving workshop.
Oh, nice.
It's huge.
Yeah.
The little stretch of highway on the way to my office gets a minimum of 4 accidents a week.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be great. Weight loss is a fun one to play with because the basic formula for weight loss is move more, eat less. And there's so many nuances that you can pull from that, and so many ways that you can target that to specific people, from people who are emotional eaters to people who eat all the right things and do all the right things except for that bag of Skittles,
Yeah.
and all of those pieces. So right now I have 3 core workshops: stress, anxiety, and weight loss. And from those, I've just been, I don't know, it'll be maybe a week before the workshop, and I'll go in and I'll change a couple words,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be exactly what I need, like magic.
Yeah, I also
And
imagine too, there's some sort of group interaction at that experience, and even that's informing you how to make a few little tweaks and customizations even while delivering it.
the flexibility is necessary and brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think that's coming back to, I don't have a background in hypnosis. So I am naturally not constrained by any preconceived notions or rules or anybody's idea of how anything has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't around in the first days of Hypnothoughts. I don't have any knowledge about how anybody dictated anything should happen.
Yeah.
So what did I do this morning? I used the bilateral hemispheric collapse for nicotine craving,
Yeah.
and because it seemed to fit and it
Right.
worked like magic. I used There's I'm not going to remember her first name, but her last name is Austin, and she put out this quit smoking script program. You could buy the book and read it and quit smoking over a period of time, and it had backup CDs and the whole deal. And I really like her script because it has, as a framework, because it has aversion options and kind of that come to reality part, and then a very soft, gentle sell. So when you're starting out, it gives you options to fit almost anybody.
Yeah. You
And
bring up something beautiful there, which this is probably my catchphrase for 2020. And I've been hinting at it already, but frameworks equal freedom.
yeah,
That when we have a specific framework, like for example, you've already seen some of the material leading up to this. Coming up in January, I'm doing the product creation workshop for the people inside of Hypnotic Business Systems, and basically, it's step one. Let's break away from just producing the single audio as the product, and instead, here's a system. And just to call it out ahead of time, system with a quick start video, this series of audios, and here are your instructions over the course of the next whatever period of time. And here's a teaching video. And suddenly we've taken it out of just being the single use audio, which maybe people sell online for like between, 10 to maybe even as high as $80 or $90. But now that it's a system, one, it's going to provide a better experience for the user. And two, it's got more value to it. And since it's the same threshold to sell one thing as it is something else, well, sell the more valuable one. But even in the community the other day, someone asked about webinars. Do you use a video? Do you not use a video to promote the webinar? And I just put up the template to say, here's
yeah,
everyone that I do. If you're on my email list, I send the same formatted email every single time. I open up the last one and we just change the content. Here's a brief call to action, something to grab your attention. Here's a link to click, and then here's more information, quote, below the fold. And by having a framework, this gives us the greatest flexibility because now we can choose, you know what, this is exactly what's right for this specific audience doing that workshop for the chamber. Or here's, people, women with 4 dogs, and you've got to completely, cut out the last half and change the ending. But now you've got that flexibility.
right. So the Austin script, I had a lady come in and said, I just have to not eat sugar. I have to treat it like cigarettes. And I'm like, oh, have I got a deal for you?
Hey,
So
what?
I gave her the smoking aversion script geared towards not eating sugar.
Yeah. Wait a
And she
minute.
hasn't had any in 2
Wait,
weeks.
hang on. Are you telling me that you took let's use the S word, you took a script and you didn't just read it, you modified it for the person in front of you and trusted it as, back to the other word, framework, and then use that at least as a foundation, another F word, to better address that person specifically? Are you actually saying that?
I absolutely am.
What the heck?
I do it every day.
Which right there, I mean, the catchphrase of let's go find another dead horse and beat it. This whole dialogue around scripts, I think we all kind of agree. I think we can move on from this dialogue that, though I'd say even if just simply reading it is getting the result, thumbs up to you, keep it up, but listen to your client and modify where appropriate. It's like, who was it? Richard Nongard's story of going, I don't usually do a lot of aversion, but when it was my lawyer's mother saying, if you could make me hate cigarettes, I'd quit. Well, have I got a deal for you?
Right. It is. And I like scripts. Wow, I said that out loud. I like scripts
There you go.
because they are a framework and just like all of these pieces. So I just came out of David Snyder's workshop with all of these great ideas and ways to implement language patterns and all of this stuff. So now I can take these scripts and I can add in better words and I
Yeah,
can make them more effective. And then when I'm done with some other brilliant person's piece of patter, then I can throw in my own. And those frameworks let you make the thing your own.
exactly.
And that's what makes us awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's come back to, so that's great in terms of building some of the systems of how we reach a bigger audience. Actually, briefly, let's branch off that for a little bit longer here. That you've now got those people in front of you. Is that the end goal, to have that workshop audience, or there's people there that are then, in my world, we don't call it an upsell, we call it upgrading the experience, that are then upgrading their experience to then come in and work for one-to-one services?
Sometimes that's a goal. And if I'm being honest, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
We do the Great American Smokeout every year,
Yes.
and I don't spend a ton of money on it, and I don't promote it heavily, but we have typically over the last 3 years had an average of 12 people come,
Nice.
and it's absolutely free. We give out little goodie bags with Febreze and lollipops and cough drops and all these great things, and I don't expect anything from that.
Yeah.
That's my give.
Hmm.
The workshops, well, I set a budget that I have this much money to play with. And if it's more than this, then I need to try and sell a client at least to pay for it. And if it's less than that threshold, then it's an experience.
I want to branch off of this for a second. How do you go about figuring out that financial threshold? Because I mean, I've got a formula for it, which I'll share in a bit here too, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Being that I am very much Karen, I don't have a scientific formula for it.
Awesome.
It's
Oh, I break mine all the time because I remember frameworks are freedom, but
yes, it's where are we at in the monthly bill cycle? What else have I already spent money on this month? Do I have the money? If I get nothing out of this $150 that it's going to cost me to do this thing, do I care? That's my formula.
Mhm.
And if the answer is no, not really, then I'll probably do it. And if it's this needs to become something more to justify doing it, then I'm going to put more. The only thing that really changes is the amount of effort that I put into getting the upsell afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm already getting paid for the workshops through the chamber. I set the price point at a point that made it worth the 2 hours of my time to do. So anything above that is cake.
Hmm. Yeah, the formula that I tend to live by is to kind of base it off of potential income of just one person.
Mhm.
So let's play some rough numbers for a moment, even if we're using an older pricing model because it's easier to do the math. A new client coming in was basically paying $1,000, and they were coming in for a series of about 3 appointments. And run the math, I'm in the office, and these days it's about 15 people a week that I max it out at just because hypnosis clients is not the only hypnosis thing that I do, which is not a sentence, at least in good grammatical form. Uh, but to look at how, okay, so of those 15, roughly I'm bringing in about 15 to 20 brand new clients every single month. So if I'm willing to invest back into the business, the income of basically forfeiting one client, that becomes a good marker. The same as here's an event, here's a big training event that's coming up, or even my own classes, and to at times forfeit the income of one student of the event to bring in a total of 15 total, which even if we play the dollar cost averaging game, it still works out. I mean, this is where we can start to make some bigger discussions, which I'll give some specifics. This is what helped me years ago to make the decision to at one point triple my rent and move into a bigger space and then drop a big down payment and basically purchase the new office because I could look at the state of the business and go, oh yeah, it's basically taken care of that this is affordable. You
Mhm.
mentioned David Snyder. We had about 60 people at that event, and the decision to move it from the one room we always use at that hotel to the ballroom. By the way, davidsnyderdc.com, joining us in November 2020. But the task of moving it to the ballroom, the rental rate of that was the difference of about $1,800 for the one room versus the ballroom for 5 days. We're talking about $8,000 for
Yeah.
that. But we can look at the scope of that and go, yeah, we're going to take care of that pretty easily. And we've got a full year to lead up to this event. So, yes, there's this line between, as Will Ferrell would say, strategery to put some method behind how we pick what we do. But also there at least is an element of, hey, watch this. Have you had any of those, hey, watch this moments of just simply throwing something out there in the last year or so, which really paid off big for you?
As a matter of fact, yes.
Yeah.
And
Tell us
I
about
don't
that.
know how big it's paying off yet.
Yeah.
I went to a health fair
Hmm.
and I spent $200 on the table rental and supplies and all the stuff that one brings to a health fair. And I had my table and I got a client out of it. So it was paid for. And my office is situated next to one of the largest teaching hospitals in New England, which means that anything health related gets very quickly absorbed in the sea of this hospital. And I looked around and I had a really, really great idea. So we need, you know what we need? We need a health fair that focuses on these integrative, holistic, alternative, complementary modalities that just focuses on us so we don't get lost in this sea of hospital business.
Mm-hmm.
So I launched it. I hosted a health and wellness expo.
Nice.
I had no idea what I was doing. Thankfully, everybody was really fantastic. I did it at a time where I had built enough of a presence in the community that I wasn't a stranger. People knew who I was. And we're going to be holding the second annual one in April,
Mm-hmm.
second or third weekend in April. And it's not cheap and it almost paid for itself. And it was just one of those non-hypnosis related, this is a really good idea. Nobody else is going to do it. So here we go. Hold your breath. See what happens.
Yeah.
Beyond that, the other thing that the really big let's see what happens was moving into the new office. Hypnosis wise, I was doing really well, but my office was dumpy and it wasn't expressing the level of professionalism that I wanted to be showing people. You don't go to the lawyer who operates out of the mobile home.
Yeah.
You go to the one with the marble pillars and ferns in the lobby.
Yeah. If you watch South Park, it's all about the fountain.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the upgrade to the office doubled rent, and there's other various and assorted fees that go with it. And it was a lot of sitting down and figuring out how many clients do I need to make this work. And the extra space allows me to have, well, a closet, which is exceptionally important.
Oh, yeah. So important.
Mhm. And this space that's dedicated to content creation.
Oh, yes.
So I'm not pulling the microphone out of the box underneath my desk every time I want to record something.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a space that's set up, it's usable, that's right there. So even if I've got, like we were talking earlier, that client at the last minute who says they can't come in, I can pop next door and rattle off another audio program.
Yeah. Which let's highlight that for a second, which this may not be something that everybody can go off and do right away, but at least there's some steps you can set in motion to make it easy. Because we'll talk about, we don't have to get into specific numbers here, but we'll talk about some of the bigger benchmarks that you've been able to pass. But I'd kind of call out part of what I've done this year, which is that the reason I moved the office was we had groundwater coming up from the floor. I had censoring myself in terms of what I say about the previous leaseholder. We'll just leave that behind. We already
Wait,
recorded that episode.
that was a problem for you?
Oh, that was the main issue. Yeah, there was
You
groundwater
couldn't.
coming up, and the way the contracts were written, the amount of effort it would have taken to try to break it, and the time was coming up anyway. I made a, pay in full offer and I broke the lease early and just moved on. It just wasn't worth the effort. But in the midst of basically losing my office for the most part for a couple of months, in the midst of doing the hunt for a new office and moving and supporting family members with some major medical things, I'm up 28%. I actually got software that tells me this. I'm up 28% as of at this point now versus last year. And I'd say a big part of that is this ability that just to walk into a space which is dedicated to content and just turn the cameras on, turn on the microphone, and it's done. Which there's a small personal aspect of this, which is that I used to at home, and some of you have seen the older videos, set up the folding screen, set up my laptop on the coffee table, and put the lighting on a laundry basket because that was the right height for the microphone. And that was my in-home studio. When now the new office is like 5 minutes down the road, and this has become the game of like tonight, there's a virtual chapter thing with Michael Watson and Karen Hand. And even though I'm only on for like 20 minutes, it turns into, yeah, but it's so much faster just to go to the office because the setup is already done.
Right.
So as
Right.
the phrase I'd say is as soon as you can. Again, in the 21st century, you are a media company first that happens to provide products and services. And whether it's the articles that you've been doing, and let's even put it into the workshops as a media opportunity as well, that by having that thing where the burden of the setup and the takedown is the reason why today I'm recording 5 podcast episodes.
Yeah, that would have been impossible in the previous with just the one space
Mhm.
because I literally have to clear the desk.
Yeah.
And it's just No. So that's been that's been a huge leap in being able to provide more quality content to take a lot of pressure off and be a better hypnotist and just keep that momentum of that consistency. And within that, experimenting within that framework and the consistency to what you can change, what's a good idea, what you're willing to throw at the wall and see if it sticks. And that
Mhm.
those changes lead to more opportunities that lead to more changes. And that's what this last year has been.
Yeah, which not to rip off Howard Cooper with the Rapid Change Works podcast, but let's go for a completely unplanned, unrehearsed, rapid round here of some questions here. What are your thoughts in terms of raising your rates over the years as things grew?
At first, I was terrified of raising my rates.
Hmm.
And now I just read somebody about the 80-20 idea that
Yeah.
if 80% of people are booking and 20% of people aren't, then you're good. If more than 80% are, then you could probably raise your rates. I explained to somebody the other day how I set my rates, that I did I created a spreadsheet of a 50-mile radius of everybody that provided anything that remotely looked like hypnosis and figured out what they were charging. And I picked a spot in the middle.
Hmm.
And I kept raising it until I was consistently filling up the schedule the way I wanted it to.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
it's a much more comfortable thing to do now. In fact, I was just thinking about doing it again
Yeah, which I mean,
today.
my math on when to raise the rates is when my schedule was completely packed and I had to do something to reduce the intake.
Right.
But then again, from there, the jump from about 975 to a 1.1500, recognizing that at that point, it was also the presentation of the number, not just the number itself. And even as of this week, shooting some videos to play with the model even further. What is a bit more of a rapid fire question here? What is your favorite new problem with having a thriving business that you didn't have before?
Oh, I have to set my alarm much earlier. That is my favorite new problem.
Mhm.
I just I have more of a schedule now than I did when I started the business.
Yeah.
Almost more of a schedule than I did when I had a job.
Mhm.
But I love it.
Yeah, it's the old, I hate this line, but I still love it though, that self-employed, we rather work 80 hours for ourselves to not work 40 hours for someone else.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So Michelle and I
There
were having
hasn't
a chat the other day that, we've kind of fallen into a nice routine. I'm the morning person. She can be the night owl. And here's where my routine is. I'm up because I like lifting weights in the morning. I'm up at around 4:45 and I take about maybe a half an hour or so, have a cup of coffee, something to eat. And that's where that's my email catch up time. So I'm doing something to kind of catch up on the business during that time frame while the body's waking up. Then I'm off to the gym and getting home around 6:45. Everyone's awake by 7 or so. But yeah, we find that rhythm where this is where some of the scalability comes into play, where we start to realize I need more hours. That's where that
Yeah,
80-20 principle comes into play to go, okay, what can I now scale back? What do I not necessarily have to do anymore? What
absolutely.
here's another one. What things did you have to learn about that you didn't expect by becoming the business owner? And as a hint, we chatted about this before we hit recording as a possible answer.
Oh my goodness. Well, my brain just exploded with the everything.
Oh yeah. Well,
I
list a couple of them. We'll branch off of them.
I I can build a hell of a website.
Nice.
And oh my gosh, you've absolutely stumped me, Jason.
Yeah. Well, we
This
were
is the part
talking
that you
about
get
some
to
things
edit.
around taxes that, these are things that there's a meme that's online, which is, and I'll see if we can find it and put it in the show notes, but it's that, hey, school, could you teach me about what a credit score actually is? Followed by,
Oh my
nope,
Lord.
here's a music class, which again, I support the arts. Yeah, but what about like taxes and balancing a checkbook? No, here's a recorder. But what about financial independence and investing? Hot cross buns.
Right.
Where these are things that unfortunately we don't know. I'm so in love with my new accountant, whose name also happens to be Jason, because he wouldn't work with me unless we scheduled a couple of sessions via Zoom for him to educate me on what I should know about my tax filings.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
can comfortably say I have never in my life balanced a checkbook
Mhm.
or attempted to.
I mean,
I
the
was an
the closest
English
nowadays I'd say
major.
would be, if someone's using QuickBooks, reconciling the data, which
Right.
I can pretend to know what that is, but it's basically balancing out the income and the liabilities and everything to look at the end of the year and show that as an S corp, which is basically what I am, I have to file not only my taxes but also a balance sheet, which I look forward to asking him and showing me exactly what that is. And this is why I fired my previous bookkeeper and accountant. Um, you mentioned something before we jumped in, though, which is the ultimate version of secondary gain, which the new hypnotist is terrified of. But as the seasoned, working your ass off hypnotist at times, the dialogue changes. Do you want to come back to that, chat?
I think I do. Ugh,
Which I'll set it
I'm
up that we
stuck.
really
Set it up.
the pre-frame to this is we genuinely care about our clients achieving their outcome. We genuinely care about helping people. But there's sometimes there's that moment where they cancel at the last minute.
Oh,
And we both really needed that time, right?
oh my gosh. So it happened to me today. So it's Monday or Tuesday. It's a day, and I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be writing an article.
December.
And I get an email this morning and I've got to attend this financial meeting with the people in the office. Can I reschedule? And in the past it would have been, oh, now I'm worried and now I'm stressed and now, okay, because if we don't work, we don't make money, right? And this morning I'm like, oh, thank God. Now I can get stuff done. The one I was actually thinking of was when I shared with you that all of a sudden I have to write these great big checks for taxes,
Yeah.
and I can. And so I think that's my moniker of success in this moment, that not only do I make enough money that I have to pay taxes, but I can afford to pay them.
And by the way, you probably see it. I post it every single year online. Technically speaking, every time you pay your taxes, you can commit at least one minor misdemeanor offense.
I
Don't look
have
me up.
mine planned.
Don't look me up on that, but it sounds true, and we're going to go with it. So,
I have mine all planned out.
jaywalk with delight. No, it's okay, officer. I paid my taxes. No, yeah, but these are those, again, the problems we didn't expect ourselves to have.
Right.
The conversations where years ago I thought I just needed to hire an accountant, but then eventually reaching a point of threshold in the business and realizing, yeah, okay, I'm paying for QuickBooks, which makes things easier. And yes, it does automatically sync up with my accounts and my credit cards and everything. And, but still, I needed someone else to even run that.
Right. And you need to know enough to know when that person's screwing up.
Right. And also, which was a big issue for us this year, is there was a major discrepancy, which turned into a $12,000 tax bill, which I absolutely owed. And it showed up at the worst possible time. And we got through it by just doing another event to cover the expense of it. And now that's why we rehashed the team. But again, looking at these places where you're at a point of threshold where now here's the guy who cleans the new office and he comes every week. And we have this kind of floating agreement that if it's a class, he'll come twice that week and there's no extra charge for that, just, based a number of times a year. And just to give the real numbers, that's about the best $300 a month I spend.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I'm not the one mopping the floors, cleaning the bathrooms. And that's an expense that's worth it because that's now time I get to go home to the family. I get to be writing something new. I get to be turning on the camera. You get to be there writing those articles. I get to be having wonderful conversations with folks like you, Karen.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So let's play the coulda, woulda, shoulda, or at least the informed adult, informed child game if we want to go hypnotic language on this. What would you do? What advice would you give to yourself differently if you had to rewind things back and take some of the knowledge that you have now back to yourself when you first got started?
I think I would have focused a little bit more on automation. And I say that with some hesitation because a lot of the stuff I didn't know I needed to automate or didn't know how one would do that, just within the framework of my business specifically. And so, but I think I would have focused more on getting stuff to run all by themselves, your whole set it and forget it. It's an easy thing, I think, for new hypnotists to miss because you don't need it automated. You have all the time in the world right now.
But automation goes beyond just software. And I'll give a specific example that as much as there may be a big entry point to working with me as a client, I have another category, which we're talking like hypnotic pain relief, where I'm going to say, we're going to kick off with a plan of just 2 appointments. because that's going to see how we can best work together and get the leverage. And basically, we kind of go more a la carte on this as opposed to something more ongoing, like, the public speaking confidence that I do. And as much as I'm the set it and forget it guy, I do not have an automated sequence for that set of office forms, that payment link, and those scheduling buttons. But instead, I just remember in my little head that David, who I saw last month, basically came on the same deal. And today, Scott called and we confirmed with Scott. And all I had to do was find the email from a month ago in Gmail and Outlook, whatever platform you use, even on your phone, there's a function to resend an email. And as soon as you click that button, it doesn't send it right away. It opens it up, and that allows you to just simply have a new draft of the email, change the email address, change the name in the subject line, and it's still technically automated. I'm just basically repurposing an old message. And, is it the drop-down menu, which I've bragged about, which used to run WorkSmart Hypnosis and Virginia Hypnosis from Infusionsoft? No, it's not, because we haven't built that yet. But just to simply find that email and just resend it and change the email address, that's enough for right now, because that's kind of a entry point that I've been testing the last couple of months and I'm kind of happy with. And eventually I'll just hire someone to really fully automate that and put that into that magic drop-down menu.
Right. And I think that's what I meant, that you have to know what your system is before you can automate it. And in those cases, but over the last few years, there's been a lot of playing catch up of that. Oh crap, now I'm busy and I need this to run itself. So if I could have done anything differently, there's certainly some pieces. There's an email confirmation set that goes out with every client. And I built that kind of on the fly, whereas before I was writing them out individually, because again, I have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
Now I don't. And so those things I would have put into place earlier. And it's easy to go in and, as you said, tweak an email, change a line, change the template, whatever it is. But I think if I had to go back, that would have been a good piece to have in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got it. So this has been great to have you back on and catch up and hear how well things have been going.
Thank you so much, Jason. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. So where can people check you out online? How can they learn more and get in contact with you?
So you can find me at greenmountainhypnosis.com, all spelled out, and you'll put the link in the notes.
Of course.
And a Facebook page of the same name.
Outstanding. And before we wrap it up, any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
Use those frameworks. I think if I had anything to share with anybody starting out in hypnosis is treat everything that you learn as a framework. If somebody else built something like, I don't know, let's say WorkSmart Hypnosis, and it's a fantastic system and it works really well, use it as a framework to then add on everything new that you're learning, to start tweaking things. And that's how you make your own really awesome thing. And that's been the structure of my success over the last 3 years.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for your feedback on these episodes, for leaving reviews, for using this as an ongoing resource in our community. Once again, head over to the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com. You can link off of there to leave reviews online, or reach out to Karen, let her know what you liked about the episode, or just reach out and say hello. And for everything else, join me at WorkSmartHypnosisLive.com. You can check out the online hypnosis training at hypnoticworkers.com, or get the all-access pass to the business training library so you can level things up. And yes, indeed, you too can make it rain. hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. Either way, enjoy the new year. We'll see you back next year with some amazing episodes coming your way. We've got Dan Candell coming up in the New Year's episode. A couple of new folks coming on as well. Amy Charlau is coming on. And then the god of all things social media these days in our profession, Zach Pensis, is going to come on. That episode's coming out to you at the end of January. How to get 100 million views online in 1 month. Let's use the terminology. Damn. We got some good stuff coming your way. Thanks for listening. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks for listening to the WorkSmart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey there, it's Jason, and I want you to be one of the first to find out as we upload amazing new content. So do this right now. Click the subscribe button right here on this video. That's going to link you to our YouTube channel here, and you will be the first to find out as new resources and downloads are made available. Do it now.